Glow. I'm not sure how other countries perceive elementals to be, but here in the Philippines they are called Engkantos, Anitos, and so on. These Engkantos and Anitos used to be worshipped by the ancient Filipinos until Spain decided to force Christianity upon us a few hundred years ago, and only then were they thought of as evil entities. Personally, I think elementals are a part of nature too, but were made differently. My first story happened when me and my family were on a 3-day vacation in Baguio City. I was around 16 or 17 at the time. Baguio City is famous for its many hauntings. I honestly don't think what I saw was a ghost. Somehow it had a different feel to it. The place we stayed in was a vacation home owned by my mum's boss, and she was nice enough to let us use the place for free. The house was situated halfway up the mountain, so it took a little while to drive all the way up, and it was fairly isolated. On the first night we were all tired as hell because of the 8-hour drive to get there, as well as having spent the rest of the day shopping for trinkets to bring home to our friends, so my family decided to crash out. Since I have acid reflux and we had just eaten, I decided to kick back and enjoy the silence by reading. While I was reading, I noticed something flicker, like a quick flash of light in my peripheral vision. I looked up from the book to the window where I thought I'd seen the light, but nothing was there, so I went on reading and it happened again. But this time when I looked up, I was in for a surprise. Outside, there was a bluish-white ball of light, not very bright, but luminescent. If I had to guess, I'd say it was as big as a volleyball, maybe slightly smaller, and if I was to estimate my distance from it, I'd say around 10 feet, far enough to see it clearly. I was scared at first, but the side of me who's easily attracted to shiny things and sometimes too curious for my own good won out, and I continued to watch in awe. It looked almost magical. It bobbed up and down very slightly as it glided, and left some sort of translucent, almost transparent tail like a comet as it moved. Then it passed behind a tree. Again, to my surprise, it emerged on the other side of the tree, but no longer as one white ball, but as hundreds of tiny swirling balls of light. It was awesome. I admit I still felt a little scared, but it was too pretty to ignore. I had this feeling that whatever it was playing with me. Then, as it passed behind another tree, when it emerged, it was back to being one big ball again. By the third time it emerged, I had to stand up and walk towards the window to continue watching it. It kept doing the same thing, compressing into a ball, then scattering, then compressing every time it passed behind a tree, till it got so far up the mountain that I couldn't see it anymore. I don't know, but to me it was awesome. I've never seen something so unnaturally pretty in my life.
I got to tell you, Paul, I don't often find myself thinking, boy, I wish I could have that experience just when we read stories on the show, because most of them are terrifying. But that actually seems like a really nice thing to see.
Sounds very pretty and as they say, magical.
Yeah. Yeah, it reminds me, and I've told this story a million times on here, but there was a guy I spoke to who saw something like that outside Radium. Well, not like that, but he saw an enormous light in the sky that seemed to give off cast no shadows. But he said he had this incredible calmness watching it pass by. And again, I wouldn't turn down some free calm.
Yeah. I mean, the Philippines is a very strange place because obviously Engkantos is the English translation of the Spanish word encanto, which means charm or spell, which obviously is then derived even further from, I believe it's Tagalog, that particular area that they speak in the Philippines, which my sister-in-law speaks, because obviously she's from the Philippines. So it's strange how the definition, the Christian definition that the Spanish imposed was to tell them all their forest friends and magical beings that the Philippines have in their folklore and their culture and their history, were all evil entities, and yet they've ended up using the Spanish word for a charm or a spell to describe it, which kind of contradicts itself.
It's really kind of like having a shitty girlfriend who comes in and tells you, man, all your friends, they're no good. We're not talking to them anymore. And then you got to start hanging out with her friends and going for brunch. And Jesus, sorry, I got distracted. But there's, bad memories. But that's kind of what it sounds like. Every time you read about Christianity coming in and tossing everything to the side, like, well, no, those are bad. You can't have those anymore. Here's new things. We're going to drink the blood of this guy every week. He loves it. You're going to dig this. I think, we obviously a long time ago did an episode called A Star in a Dark Night, The Haunting of the Philippines.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's probably one of my favorite episodes that I don't think gets a lot of attention. It might even be the kind of thing where we have to kind of redo it, just like kind of you and me reading those scripts, because they were 2 lengthy listener emails is what they were. And again, one of them from Bob Vasquez, who's a longtime friend of the show. Bob's a hell of a guy. And he's been with us for as long as there's been a Ghost Story Guys to be with. And just the most interesting lore and the most interesting experiences, completely unlike I've heard anywhere else. And I know Bob, when he talked about that house that his family lived in the Philippines, it was genuinely unnerving. Again, not everything in the paranormal has to be scary. This was actually quite a nice story, but the one story Bob told was shit scary. They had a buddy system for going to the bathroom because they had some kind of real nasty mimic thing that liked to hang around. And again, of the things that really shit me up, mimics are at the top.
And Anna Maria Manalo, the author, is also a really good resource for stories, because she grew up in the Philippines before she moved to the States.
Right.
And her first book, Portal, has a lot of stories of Philippine encounters with strange creatures of a variety of descriptions. So if anybody wants a really good starting point, you could always check her work out. And she's a lovely woman as well. She's a very nice lady.
Do you remember what episode of Eminem she was on?
She's been on 3 times now, I think.
Oh, right. Yeah, of course.
We did Portal, one of the first, God knows, I don't know, it's probably in the first 20 odd episodes, somewhere around there. She's been on twice since. Every time she's had a book out, she's done it. We did the Way Through the Woods, which was a story about a German girl who has a series of extraordinary paranormal encounters whilst escaping the occupation of the Nazis at the beginning of the Second World War.
Oh, wow.
And then she did a collection of haunted antiques in another book, which involves some very strange stories indeed.
Okay.
But one of the scariest stories I've ever read was in Portal, which was about a couple who were on holiday in France in a very remote, I'm not sure, kind of like a cabin somewhere in the south of France, and they thought it was marvellous, the remoteness of it, the fact that they had to drive into the local village to get their cheese and their bread and their wine, and they were just enjoying their lovely evenings. And then they realised that there was a lot of deer outside, so they were just, ooh, these are really nice. And it was lovely until they all started to stand up on 2 legs.
Jesus.
And just started moving around the cabin as if they were just walking.
Nope. No, thank you.
So, really good. Some really good stories in her work. I recommend it highly if you've never read any of her books.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to pick that up. So. How did that one end? I assume they just left.
They just let them eat the children and made their escape.
Oh, that's fair. It's cheaper. It's cheaper than paying for childcare. I got to say that shit's expensive, man. Deer got to eat too. I'm kidding. By the way, anyone listening, don't cancel me on Twitter because I said that. I've done lots of other shit you can cancel me for.
Yeah, they just kind of dealt with it, and then were glad to finish their break and return home.
So they stayed in the cabin? That
Fight
is
them off with a baguette.
Okay. I mean, it's going to hurt. The deer have a pain threshold, but that is
you
a
see
level
the size of balls of cheese in France. You could kill a man with a camembert there.
The size of their balls is impressive considering they just stuck around. Holy Christ! I see some deer walking around on hind legs. I am out of there faster than you can say whatever "gone" in French is.
Well, usual. I would imagine some people here in England would probably think, I might try and wrestle that.
Well, okay. Based on what I saw when I was in England, yeah, those guys are absolutely there. sure know it's not all they would try and do with it. Yikes. Interesting. And folks, yeah, I mean, definitely check out Star in a Dark Night, episode 88. And like I said, we might actually do a reinterpretation of that one the way we did with Death on the Road and Ghost in the Machine, because I really, again, it just, it's not a part of the world we get a ton of stories from on this show. We used to have more back when we used one particular resource for stories. We don't use it as much, so we don't have as many Philippine stories, but just really, really great shit. And just shout out to Bob Vasquez. Again, Bob has been with us for a long time, done a lot of brilliant art. We don't talk as much as we did, but that's more just because I'm very bad at keeping up with communication than anything that Bob has done. Yeah. Hi, Bob.
And just like to say, as I touched on, my sister-in-law is from the Filipinos, and it was her birthday last week, so happy birthday, Steph. Hope you had a lovely day.
Happy birthday, Steph.